This episode of Skirmish Supremacy is brought to you by Reformation Brewery, the official beer of your game night. All right, folks, we are back with another episode of Skirmish Supremacy, and tonight Nick is joining us again. I know last week he had to step out and get some things done. He ended up staying late at work. And speaking of work, mine has been really, really busy lately, and so has Nick's. And because of that, we suck and we forgot to schedule a guest for tonight. It has nothing to do with us not being able to find people. It has everything to do with us, everything to do with the fact that we both are just really, really terrible at scheduling things lately. So, yeah, tonight is going to be another hobby banter and a little bit of talk about some of the stuff we have coming up, a little bit of what grinds our gears, and whatever the hell else we feel like talking about. So, Nick, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Actually, this week's the first week in several that we haven't had someone scheduled. I think that was the problem, was that we had that mass scheduling, and then we had a few no-shows, and I was trying to, work out a few reschedules, but they just weren't having it. They, everything, this night's not good, would that night work? And it's like, no, this is going on or that's going on. It's been kind of crazy. So
yeah, it's gonna be tougher the closer and closer we get to the holiday seasons with everybody too. Either they're working in a game company or they're have a day job and working in a game company, or just holidays in general. Things start to become harder and harder to schedule just because of the nature of the beast, if you want to call it that. So, yeah, this is I have a feeling this will probably happen a few more times before the end of the year's up.
Oh, probably. But, once we're into December, then it's, acceptable to say, hey, what was the highlights of the years? What were the, boos of the years? Things like that. So, we've got some of those shows planned out still.
Sure. But, lately we have not had a chance to game together too much. We had the Dust Day over at Gigabytes, which is amazing. So Greg and Alicia came down from Dust USA, showed us some of the new monsters, all the crazy Cthulhu stuff going on. And
oh, man, that stuff was amazing.
Yeah. Do you remember how many people we had for that event?
You know what? I didn't even get a good count. I know there was 4 at my table that we played at. And then we had we had that whole back row that was set up for like 8 people, 8 different play mats. And at one point, at least, that was full with people still looking on and watching. So, we had quite a few. I would say, somewhere around 16 or so.
Yeah, I would say it was probably about that. I know that we had quite a few people at one point. I know the first few hours was a little slow, but after that, it's really started ramping up. I think I actually managed to get in like 3 or 4 games that day.
I had one big game, and I played it gridless. So for those of you unfamiliar, Dust, as it comes in like the starter box and stuff like that, it has 4-inch grids, and all your movement and shooting's based off that. Does have rules for playing gridless. Generally, the game that you play on is on a 3x4 mat, 2x3 mats. You put them together, it makes a 3x4 mat. We were playing on a 6x4 mat, and I liked it a lot more, especially because it seems like with gridless and the people who play gridless, they, and they're usually, pretty well established war gamers and all that. So they like their terrain, and they like putting out a lot more terrain. Whereas the grid system, especially in Dust, it's actually very terrain light.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it's usually only, 4 to 6 pieces, so you're really only filling 4 to 6 squares, which is maybe, 20%?
Right, exactly. It's usually, I think the most I've seen is 25%. And that really doesn't work for, like, I was running Rangers, the heavy Rangers, which are allies, and they have jump packs. Now, they're in smaller groupings. So instead of a normal like 5-man infantry squad, there's only 3 of them. And though they have jump packs or jet packs and they can move really far, they, if they get shot, they have a low chance of surviving. Even though they're wearing heavy armor, and that helps, they don't have anything else really going for them to help them survive. So if they get hit, they're going to go down. So cover and places to hide are really important. And playing on a map that had a whole lot of places for them to duck behind and whatnot, I mean, it was a great game. Partly because I just ended up winning. There's nothing more satisfying than having your guys who have rocket fists beat a giant Joseph Stalin tank, which is a massive tank. It's like just its turret on top is 4 by 4 inches or just about. So having your guys smash that and make it blow up is just highly entertaining. Unless you own the tank, and then it's not as much. But so it was really nice to play like that. And I think even though I kind of like the grid, I have extra mats, so I'll probably aim to make it more of a 4x6 mat when I play. But I will I'll definitely be tossing some of the terrain rules around and just placing more terrain when I play from now on.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, even the army list that I had for the most part. Now, keep in mind, I was erring on the side of ridiculous, but I was also using kind of a melee heavy list. So there's a lot of times where it's like I would just run forward and sit there and wait for them to get closer and just make sure that I couldn't get shot from anywhere. So there was a lot of that. But
yeah,
and
it's definitely a challenge in that game to make sure you don't get shot. And, it's not even, a like being cheesy or anything like that, because you're going to have your own walkers and things like that are going to be out in the open. And, it really, really kind of hurts when you start losing those. But
yeah, walkers going down gets expensive quick.
Yeah, it does. But in that list, I was running 100 point. I think I was at 99 points, and I had, I think, a total of 9 units that I was putting out there, and my opponents had 13, 14. So I was heavily outnumbered, with every game I played.
Yeah, which makes sense.
But you mentioned the Cthulhu guys, the monsters. I forget exactly what it was, what the starter set's called off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it's just the Mythos army box. So
yeah, so the main monster in there has a name, and I forget.
Nyarlathotep.
Yeah, that thing. I won't even try and say that. We've all heard me try to just pronounce Smith, and how bad that goes. So, so I have to say, my oldest son, the brash 11-year-old that he is the first non-Dust employee person to ever play with them. He's quite happy about it. I'm actually kind of happy for him because he had a ball playing them. And so, he played them, and then I think somebody else played a game, but then I got a chance to play them, and they are a lot of fun. There's only 3 monsters in that starter box, and then I had an infantry squad and a hero that were the mercs that I took to basically round me out to 100 points. And I faced off against a allies walker list, and man, it came down to just the last little bits of fighting, because it was they have a lot of hit points, and they're treated as vehicles, so they have some damage reduction and stuff like that, but not a whole lot. So they just it's really challenging. And two of the monsters, they have just claw attacks. It's the one problem that you have with basically war games in general, is that you have only a couple of attacks, and a lot of the times it's you have only a couple of attacks that'll do a lot of damage, but that means you're rolling 2 dice. Whereas if you flip those numbers around, you might do 8 damage, 2 attacks that do 8 damage, but if you did 8 attacks that do 2 damage, your averages are going to go up. And that's the one thing that I kept finding with them, was that was the one place that they were like, is that they didn't necessarily have a lot of attacks, so there was a lot more of missing than I liked.
Yeah, they definitely, they're heavy hitters. They're not the most accurate. So that's the one thing that I did notice with them, because I believe it was the Star Spawn of Cthulhu that I think even against like a level 5, 6, or 7 or armor 5, 6, or 7 vehicle, like they get 2 dice, but they're doing 4 damage per hit, which was ridiculous. So on average, they're taking out most walkers in a single hit, at least up to about an armor level of 4. Anything past that, you start dealing with a little bit more wounds, but even, well, hell, like some of your heavier tanks, like they have how many wounds to them?
A lot will have like 7. Once you get past, like, say, armor, or you hit about armor 5 with your vehicles, usually you're going up to 6 or 7 wounds. Armor 4 and below, you usually have 4.
Right. So the fact that like armor 4 and below, they're taking out a vehicle like in a single hit. You start getting armor 5, 6, and 7, it might take them 2 hits. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if they can close with the vehicle and just stay on top of it, they'll probably take it down pretty easy. But it also means that you have to make sure there's nothing else on the board that's going to turn around and just keep shooting them, because that's the one thing about them, is they are still just a giant vehicle. They can still be shot.
And, without any kind of saves, you definitely are losing wounds faster.
Yes.
Which the Star Spawn don't get any saves. That big one with all the tentacles, or not tentacles,
he's got the big tentacle face.
Yeah.
Like the weird flappy jaw tentacle face.
Yeah, weird flappy jaw tentacle face. Upside down. Stranger Things reference. Kind of like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Except for, like 30 feet tall and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, Nyarlathotep, I know he's got a couple other attacks. He does have a Psychic Screech, which is really good. I think it's only a once per game use, but when he does it, you're pretty much just going to blow up whatever the hell's in front of him. So, use it wisely.
And that's the thing, is that, like, he's got a lot of shenanigans. And then in a platoon, which the starter box makes a platoon, even if you have to add in like something like the mercs, they don't bring the percentages off enough to counter the platoon. So you have that, and I forget exactly what it did, but it basically made you immune to like suppression or something along those lines.
Yeah, you could. You did not suffer suppression, so that means that no matter what, you were always moving forward or wherever you wanted to.
Right. There was no will I lose an action or anything like that, which, I mean, is definitely fantastic, because suppression can really, really add up, and you've got to roll 2 faction symbols. Well, at least 1 faction symbol, but if you want to get rid of under fire and suppression, you need to roll 2 of them at the start of your activation. So that can totally tear into your chances of surviving if you have to roll that. Thankfully, right. Yeah. Thankfully, with that bonus, you don't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah, it's very true. But past that, so that was the new hotness. Greg showed us some early renders of some of the stuff that's going to be coming out for the lower point box, because most of the boxes that come out, they fall within 25 to 28 points as far as the $65 starters go. I know that the big box, the 81 point box, is going to be, it's either 120 or 130 for the primed edition. So whatever that is, take it and double it for the premium pre-painted. But yeah, we had every single army there represented. We had the Russians, we had we had the Axis, we had Allies, we had the Soviets, we had everybody, actually. I don't think there was a single faction that was left out, or sub-faction for that matter.
I don't think, well, I don't know if Rangers was there for the Allies. Well, no, wait, I was playing Rangers, never mind.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I wasn't going to be playing Rangers. I had built out a Marine list, and then Greg said that he had purposely brought for me the last remaining for Dust USA right now Ranger items that I had needed. So, or he had made sure, like, he had to look around and scrounge to find it, because he knew that was what I was trying to build with the heavy Rangers. So he made sure that Gigabytes had them on hand. So I felt kind of obligated to, as I was picking them up, to unbox them and use them in the game.
Right. So I was pretty much Blut Cruise the entire time. So that's the Axis mad scientists, and more specifically, my list was pretty bananas. But I made it a point that I wanted to run an ape-heavy list, so I ran Marcus as my hero commander with a unit of the regular Blut Cruise Guerrilla Corps, and then a unit of the Blut Cruise Engineer Guerrillas, which have basically jackhammers and the Flamfaust, I believe it's called, which is basically it's a nasty double hitting flame template that does lots and lots of damage to everything it hits, but it is only a one-shot item. But these things are still really good at taking out tanks, just like their regular AP Power Fisty brethren. So overall, I did fairly decent with it. There was one match where the dice were against me the whole time. So there was nothing I could do about that. But for the most part, it actually performed a lot better than I thought it would, compared to, going way back Fantasy Flight Games edition, where the apes, when they first came out, you played them because it was like, wow, yes, cool apes. But then you realize after a while that, like, there was so many other better options that it was almost never worth taking them. But I'm glad to see that they're coming back in full glory and actually being a threatening unit again.
And soon you'll have a flying ape as well.
Yes, I'll have a flying ape. So that makes all the difference in the world of everything, is having a flying ape that can fly around the board and guerrilla uppercut planes out of the air.
And we all know Mike Tunez right now, when he listens to this, is shaking his head going, what is wrong with those two in monkeys? Monkeys. Every time they do something, it has to involve a monkey.
Get over it, motherfucker. But anyway.
Even as I get my Frostgrave Ghost Archipelago stuff together, one of my characters has a monkey.
Right, so just deal with it. It's fine, Mike. So yeah, we got a chance to play a lot of Dust games, and then they went out for dinner with us afterwards, and we definitely solidified that friendship a little bit more. I can't wait to have them back at the Atlanta area. So
definitely,
I'm sure that will happen again sometime next year.
Yeah, hopefully, definitely. And we are going to be, Tim has been doing a series with Corey for the Witchborn, and starting here shortly, it will be probably around the time Tim ends the Witchborn series, will be a series that Greg and I are putting together, talking about dust and building lists and all that for
Right.
it. Some of the different advantages, and same idea as the Witchborn series, but this one will be dust focused. So
right. So speaking of that, like we've each been playing a couple different games. Obviously, Dust was the biggest one that we played together the last time, but I've been focusing a lot on the Witchborn lately, obviously just because of the fact I'm doing the series, but also I'm a big RPG fan. I'm a big miniatures fan. The Witchborn is still probably the most perfect 50-50 blend that I've ever found of both genres. So for me, I've been really getting into it a lot lately. And I just had at Discover Games, which is a store down in Fayetteville, Georgia, this last Sunday, the first in-store official, now that it's being sold in a retail, Witchborn demo. So I actually ran at first a private demo for the store owner and employees, and basically his group of hardcore people that are going to really be pushing it now that it's out in retail. So that was a full-on game compared to the demo game that is part of the quick start guide in the box. And then after that, I ran quite a few people to the kickstart or the quick start version. And a lot of people they got the hang of it pretty fast. And a lot of them really liked it. So I would say overall, it was a very successful weekend. I was busy the whole time. And even if I did not have space at the table, there was still a lot of people around the table watching the game being played. So I'm glad that we're starting to see the Witchborn become a little bit more of a game store no name. And I can just hope that it just keeps going from here, because let's face it, Corey's busted his ass as this one-man show for a very long time on this game, and it's time that it starts paying off for him. So I'm really glad to be part of that whole process and keeping it rolling from there. And of course, I kind of hinted at it. If you guys have listened to the Raising the Witchborn segment, there is more stuff coming out in the future. He's already working on future expansion plans. I'm actually playtesting a new war clan as it is. So there's two war clans that are in playtesting right now. There's 6 existing. And then he's got some new adventures that are coming along with it as well. So the game is still growing. It's not like if you were to go and buy Enter Edition right now, that's all there is ever. No, there's still much, much more to come.
Which is awesome. And I need to get my my beardless dwarves back on the table. They need to finish chasing down the terrible wolfen and get their pelts because they stole their beards.
Yeah, so that is actually the faction I'm playing, or the war clan I'm playing right now, is the Wolven, which are basically giant mutated werewolves. Yeah, that's really what they are. They're giant mutated werewolves that use big weapons and can't ride horses because they're too big. So instead, they ride mastodons. And overall, they're very brutal. They're very good at getting into combat. Their biggest weakness is the fact that they don't have human intelligence. They are basically wolves that were mutated and, grew to be like 8, 9, 10 feet tall and are now, standing on 2 legs. So, well, most of them anyway. So they still have wolf intelligence. So they're not very bright. So a lot of spells such as sleep and things like that take out Wolven really easily. So, anything that's like a mind-based spell will pretty much take out a Wolven. So, the first couple times you play against them, especially once they release, keep in mind they're going to look scary. They're going to look intimidating, but they are dumb. They're the dumbest faction in the game because of that.
You know what takes out Wolven really easily? Old dead ladies.
Yes. Going back to the Adepticon game. So typically the Wolven are fairly good at taking out like Witchborn that are around the same level as them. When we were playing our game at Adepticon, for those of you that may have listened to the Adepticon 2017 episode, I couldn't roll dice to save my life, and I had this one single Witchborn basically kicking the ass of every single one of my Wolven up and down the entire battle map. The whole game. I was the first one to draw one of the discovery markers. It was this Witchborn woman who freaked out and just started killing me.
Yep. Tim managed to try and rush to get all of the discovery tokens and all of that, and he got several of them, and then he turned that one over, and his whole entire game changed.
In the ass. Pun intended on that one too. But it just it went downhill from there. But my new Wolven that have all survived actually did pretty well this last weekend. They ended up taking people out, but they did get knocked out during the game. So we kind of had a giant bloodbath in the middle of the board. So they went down, putting a lot of dents and a lot of foreheads, but then eventually they routed off the board, which I was okay with because I didn't lose any. None of them died. One of them did get maimed, but now she's fearsome, which is okay by me because that means that people have to think twice before hitting her in melee. Having that is always a good problem to have.
Right.
But, 6 of my 8 actually managed to level up.
Very nice. That's always handy.
So I'm looking forward to getting more games of the Witchborn in. Again, for those of you out there, I know I sound like I'm selling it. In a way, yes, okay, fine, I am. But at the same time, it is a very fun game. If you really like equally RPGs and miniatures, I can't recommend it enough.
So. I haven't played it since Adepticon. I totally forgot that you were going to Discovery Games on Sunday. I might have tried to go down there with you to get some games in. Brought the Beardless Dwarves, but we'll have to arrange for some of those in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to see it played on the channel a little bit more. Get Robin involved with it a little bit because the game again it does really well for 6 players. So it plays multiplayer very well.
Yeah. Speaking of Robin, he's been recovering from his surgery, and while he's been recovering from his surgery, he has been pumping out some miniatures, man.
He's been painting like a son of a bitch. I don't know how many he's knocked out so far, but he's been doing a lot.
Here, Tim and I are like, oh my God, today's been so long. And Robin's like, oh, I started this company of Mana Wars this morning, and, here, I'm done. Look at them, guys. You
get bent, Robin.
You know what? I'm gonna poke you in the shoulder.
So yeah, that was
it's shoulder surgery. So
so yeah, there's a lot of that. But I know that you have been playing. Well, I don't know how much you've been playing, but you definitely dipped your toe into Saga.
Yeah. So I've been getting into Saga. Let's see. I've got Anglo/early Saxons now. I've got Roman/Britons. People who've been following have been seeing that I've been painting up Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and Guinevere. And then I also just recently got from that stuff was from Footsore. And then I've also got an Irish warband from Footsore. Yeah, I've been really enjoying it. But, right after I bought all the books, they announced the second edition, or not all the books, but, the books I needed to play, they announced second edition. It's like,
of course they did.
But, even though it's scheduled for early 2018 to come out, the first book that's going to come out is the core book, which is only supposed to be, I think they said roughly about £10. So I think like $15. It's not going to, it's just going to strictly be the rules. So that'll be nice. There's some tweaks in it and all that some of them, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Makes sense. Some of them are like, I don't know. I haven't been playing, that long, but, just long enough to go, I don't know if I would care for that change in the mechanics, but it's nothing too crazy. Some people talked to them at Crisis and they dropped a bunch of hints and teasers. They haven't really sat down and written it all up. So we'll see, but yeah, I've gotten a few different games in now. I really like it. I've been really having fun with just the game as a whole because it's just a little bit different. Being historical, one of the big things I like about it is that like range isn't going to just murder you. You know, like range attacks can hurt, but it's, you know, there's no magic shenanigans and all that, you know, which I don't know. The more I'm playing like historical type games that take out, basically take out not range, but magic, I'm finding I'm really enjoying the games a whole lot more because I don't know, magic has been bothering me lately in games. It just always seems like it's broken. I think that's the big thing.
It is magic. So
it is magic, but it just, and it's not like the magic itself is broken. It's that something with the game and the rules is just not quite balanced where, you know, like I would expect you to have that one spellcaster or those two spellcasters or whatever and them to be powerful, but not so powerful that they make up an army on their own. And then you have everyone else to get through. Unless that everyone else was just absolutely just chaff. But usually it's not. You know, you have this guy who can devastate most of your army, and then, you know, then you have all their elites that you have to try and get through. Or games that have dragons.
So games with kings that have a lot of wars and there's elf kings on dragons and
there's elf kings on dragons. You know what? I don't even want it to seem like I really don't like that game. That it's a good game, but it's a game that was kind of designed for those people leaving a long-standing fantasy game that went away and that were tournament players and power gamers and power builders. And I know that not everyone in that game system and environment play like that, but basically everyone I've encountered. And so it's not that the game is bad, but it's that I'm a little bit more of a kind of a fluff guy. I like, you
want to build what looks cool.
That look cool and that, go together and not just I'm building this because it will allow me to just absolutely dominate everyone around me.
Right. Which I can totally understand that. But historical, I mean, obviously we've been playing a lot of Blood and Plunder. That's probably our first big foray into like a straight up legit historical game. I'm actually working on Yom Vikings right now for Saga. That will be my first army. And of course, after doing some reading online, because right now I'm on a bit of a Viking kick, I find out that the Yom Vikings are one of the hardest factions to play. And I'm like, well, that makes sense that I would choose them then, because apparently I don't like playing easy games, or I don't like playing the easy factions. It always seems like every time I jump into a game, I always pick up the faction that is like, oh, this got the highest learning curve. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. I guess that's what I'm doing again with the Ohms Vikings.
Well, and so that, I think we both, kind of bounces back and forth on that curse, because I jumped into Kings of War and I'm like, they have a, army that's, all knights or, mostly all knights. That's what I want to play. And of course it's like one of the most broken in the entire game. And, broken in the fact that it just doesn't have some of the things that all the other ones do for their knights. It's like you charge in and instead of having, you have thunderous charge, but if anything trips you up or once you get into combat, you lose it all. So your guys turn into soft, wet noodles. And
on horses, though.
On horses. But that doesn't matter. You're still a soft, wet noodle that, they can just smack around, even if they're, grots in the grass. So there was that. And then getting into Dust, I picked up the Ranger starter set, and and with that one, like everyone's like, yeah, that one's the one that has the biggest learning curve. I'm like, well, that figures. So yeah, I definitely understand you when it's like, yeah, I picked this up. Yeah, that's probably the hardest one to learn.
Yeah. So like Nick was saying, in historical games, like range attacks can hurt. The Yom Vikings cannot take any ranged characters at all. So the way that it works is in Saga, for those of you that aren't familiar, you get a warlord, and then there's 3 classes of units. There's Hearthguard, warriors, and levy. So the way it breaks down is that let's say we're playing a 4-point game. You always get your leader, and then for 1 point you can get 4 Hearthguard, 12 levy. Technically, levy are always the ones that use bow and arrows. Yom Vikings cannot take levy ever.
No levy all the time.
No levy all the time. Correct. But at the same time, I can take Dane Axis for free on all my units.
Yeah, those are gross. But because you do lose your shield, you do take a hit to your armor.
Right.
But
so if I'm getting in there, it's going to hurt. But again, there's a couple of abilities that I have that can be seen as magic, but it makes a little bit more sense on kind of this pseudo historical feel. So one of the abilities that I can unlock with the Saga dice is actually called, I want to say it's either the Mist or the Fog. I forget the name, but basically I drop a heavy fog on the table, and then I will just remove 3 models from a unit. So where it sounds, it's like, oh, I'm using some nasty magic. What it really comes down to is it's like I've got some Yom Vikings that are sneaking around in the fog and like silently stabbing people in the back.
Yeah,
that's my version of a quote unquote ranged attack. It's like the only one I get. Past that, I just have to get really, really angry and then run at you.
So, and that's the fun thing with Saga is that you're not, you do have the battle boards which bring in basically special abilities. They allow you to locate some of your Saga dice, which is how you activate units and stuff like that. They allow you to locate some of that to do some sort of shenanigans, improve your armor, possibly, some sort of debuff. And, each one of them has some sort of context, the ability, he's, referencing where there's a fog. Well, that's because historically these people, attacked when it was kind of foggy or, in that, kind of pre-dawn hours or whatever. So they would take advantage of it. You look at
like the Yom Viking, for example, historically, they were a highly elite special forces army. So they're going to do a little bit more guerrilla warfare style stuff where it's like, yeah, they're going to attack when it's foggy out, and they're going to use that to their advantage because they know that they don't have numbers on their side.
Exactly. And if you look at like King Arthur, the one with Clive Owen in it, when they open the gates of the wall or whatever, it wasn't the wall, but the like city gates or something like that, and the Saxons go in there, they've got all the burning stuff, creating this dense wall of smoke, so they could run through it and strike at the Saxons that were invading in that movie.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's got seems like a little bit of mysticism, but it's easily written off as just anything else that falls within historicals. So
yeah.
But yeah, speaking of the historicals, obviously we're doing some more with Blood and Plunder on December 5th. There's the Blood and Plunder game day at Gigabytes. So Nick, I know you're heading that one up again.
I am. I've also got Nathan Regad helping. You know what? I've never asked him how he pronounces his last name. I probably butchered it.
It's Rigaud.
Rigaud. See?
It's very French.
It's very French. See, but I didn't ask him, so I didn't know.
It's fine. It's Nate. So, do whatever. If you want, just throw a bunch of croissants at him when he walks in the door.
But he's gonna be helping out. I'm probably gonna, because he's been really enjoying ship to ship combat. I'm probably gonna set him down on that side to help run some demos for ship to ship. It is a games day, so it is designed for people to come in to learn to play, people who know how to play to come out and have some fun playing. And this time around, hopefully I will finish up some of the mission ideas and actually, put those into play so that it's a little less free for all, hopefully this time we aren't running like an hour behind. So that really threw me off.
Yeah. Hopefully we could jump in and just get it going right away.
Yeah.
But that's coming up on December 5th, the Gigabytes. So it's definitely something to look forward to. If you have Blood and Plunder, bring it. If you don't, that's okay.
It's actually December 2nd. It's a Saturday.
Gotcha. Okay. For some reason I had the 5th caught in my head. Oh, I know why. I just got done running the Witchborn on the 5th. Yes. December 2nd. December 2nd.
Yeah. The 2nd. Woo. I was like, the 5th? The 5th doesn't sound right.
Right. So we've
go ahead.
I was going to say that we've been talking a lot about pirates and we've been talking a lot about Vikings and all the other good stuff that we've been doing. But what else we got going on for the Games Day right now?
For the Games Day, so once again, it's going to be that whole 6x12 layout that I had last time. Using my mats. I think we may have some of the terrain from. I know we'll have some of the terrain from. Miniature Building Authority. Man, I was just looking at their Kickstarter for their shantytown just a little while ago.
Which, by the way, folks, if you haven't backed it, I definitely recommend it if you play any type of modern or near future game. Stuff's amazing.
And, you can't go wrong with it. Their early birds are really good. Actually, somebody, so I had shared it around and somebody was saying that, it was a bit pricey, which it's resin terrain. Resin terrain generally is. But I calculated one of theirs up. It comes with X amount of buildings, and it was X price, and it was really coming out to like $31 a building. And that doesn't count like having the interiors and all that, which a lot of buildings, even MDF buildings, don't come with. So I don't know. I don't think it's that bad of a deal, and that might have been the bigger the set was. Because it was one of their upper price ones. I just kind of randomly picked it, and I didn't contrast it with anything else to check. So that's the caveat there. But yeah, no, it's a great terrain. We had them on. There is the video out there showing off a lot of the stuff as they talked about it. There's even more on the Kickstarter now because we had them on earlier this summer. So that's cool. But with the Games Day, back to that, they have provided us with some terrain. I already had some of their terrain. So we'll have the Spanish town and the French farm going on again. I also think Henry Durand, he's planning on coming out. And he does have a bunch of terrain that he scratch built that looks really good.
Nice.
So we might have a great big Spanish city, which he and I were talking about that a little while back. Would be fun to have and play because then we can do just like a big city fight, which would be interesting. The storming of Port Royal or something like that, or Panama, or any one of those cities that got stormed multiple times.
Nassau, but Yeah, there's so many. Like pretty much every city. If you were a port city back in the 1600s and 1700s, you were pretty much getting hit at some point by somebody. So that's all there was to it. It just
Yep.
depended upon what amount. Yeah, if anything, if I get a chance to get it all together, I will probably be running a big John Morris list of logwood cutters and just make them all hammered.
That will be awesome. Just a bunch of drunk pirates
Just drunk pirates everywhere.
everywhere. That would work beautifully.
So yeah, we got that coming up, but yeah, I'm trying to think. Rest of the year, I think that's really all we got.
Probably.
As
I
far as
tried
events.
to, especially for events that we're putting on. There's some other little ones here and there, but there's starting to be at Gigabytes. There's starting to be Company Iron Mondays, so I'm gonna try and get out there once I get these blue guys, Signar guys, painted up, and try out Company Iron. That caught my attention a little while back. And then there's Necromunda coming out the end of this month. So I am looking forward to that and the shenanigans there.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that one's gonna be fun. A lot of us are old school Necromunda fans, so having the game come back, even if it is under like the guise of a pseudo 8th edition, it's still gonna be fun. Can't go wrong with it.
Right. I think the only thing that kind of makes me sad is that they're going more with their board game route with it than the old school, terrain and all that.
Yeah, so they actually talked about that in a video lately. So it's kind of funny you brought that up because I know you and I talked about it, and Robin, we kind of talked back and forth about it. So yes, they are releasing it in its box content form. Is kind of a board game where you're fighting in like the enclosed claustrophobic underhives. However, they have every intention for that game to be played just like classic Necromunda, where you're taking stub guns with the hotshot rounds and like shooting people and sending them flying off of railings, falling to their death and all that. That is all 100% still supposed to be there. But for accessibility of the game when it comes out, they're kind of doing it in like the sewers. So don't let the current iteration in the box fool you.
So I can understand that somewhat, except for they've done so many sets in recent history. Even starting with what was it, Knight Renegade or Renegade Knight or whatever it was, where you got 2 knights, the big walkers, and a decent set of terrain to go with them for the price of what was normally the cost of 1 knight. So for like $120. Or earlier this year, they released Shadow War Armageddon, which came with a good bit of terrain that would fit perfectly for Necromunda. And it came with 2 factions? Gene Stealers and Scout Marines for like I think that was $165. And here they're giving us some cardboard. They do have some like some of the terminals and the doors and things like that are really neat looking. That the 3D elements, they are including stuff like that. That is the nice thing. They've also done that since like the early edition of Space Hulk. But so they have that and they have the board, and it is kind of reminiscent of that early Space Hulk. But it's just and it's the 2 gangs, and it's going to be $125. And it does make me kind of go, I kind of wish that they did a little bit of something, because even if you look at the Racing and Cormorant game that they put out last year, right, that even had some 3D terrain in it.
Yeah, very much so.
So I get the accessibility. This is going to be, I think it was $125 dollars for the box set for it. It is going to come with the 2 games, the rule book, all that stuff. So it's not a bad deal. I just wish there was more. But at the same time, we do know that Death Ray Designs has some awesome terrain as well. So to satisfy, my sadness, I guess I'll just have to assemble that stuff.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. But just buy Austin stuff and be happy. So yeah, let's see what else have we not covered so far.
So we've talked a couple times about pirates, and we've talked a couple times about Vikings, and we have actually avoided an elephant in the room. You happened to put out something that had Osprey letterhead all over it. Actually, it had it 6 times. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, oops. I know you have dedicated November to NaNoWriMo.
As much as I have, it hasn't worked out as much as I wanted it to, mainly because it's one thing when you're just typing a bunch of words for a novel, not saying that it's easy by any stretch, folks. So if you're a novel writer out there, don't think I'm like shutting down what you're doing. But at the same time, I'm like trying to develop stats and game balance, and using that as trying to get to 50,000 words out in a month.
Yeah, no, I understand. Actually, the irony is that I seem to have all this time, not all this time, but I seem to have a bunch of extra time to, put words on paper. And then November hit, and suddenly I don't seem to have that time. I'm like, where did that I had some time to write, and I knew I was going to have some here, but it disappeared. So, we, there is definitely that challenge, but, yeah, so I know you can't say a whole lot, but I will say that, out of those, six big packets that you had, 3 of them go together and the other 3 go together. And one is going R, and the other one is going, R in kind of a different way. More like one's raiding and horny helmet sort of way.
Yeah. So, for our listeners out there that have, tuned into past episodes, I talked about my system, the Morpheus engine. So to kind of sum everything up, at Adepticon this year, I sat down with Phil Smith from Osprey Games, and I pitched him some game ideas that involved the Morpheus engine. As some of you know, that I've had this baby I've been working on for a while called Phantus, the Dark Below, the dark gothic horror game that is very much like Mordheim meets Clive Barker's Jericho meets Hellraiser. And they didn't take that one. So, whatever. It's but that one's still being worked on. So those of you that were listening and were excited about that one, fear not, that's still being worked on. That's still going to be something that's published, just not by Osprey. However, they did take 2 other games with 2 expansions each. So the 6 contracts that you saw were exactly that. I can't talk too much about them just yet, outside of the fact that I can say that one is called, for naming conventions, Project Viking, and the other one is Project Pirate. Obviously, I don't want to go into too much detail, but what I will say about both games is that they will both be using the Morpheus engine. So the same concepts apply, that if you've played one, then you could easily jump into playing the other one. You could skip the basic rules. You already know the basic rules and just read the additional rules for what's needed for the other game. Both of these games will be balanced for a tournament play structure. And on top of it, both of these games will have a complete campaign system, along with the ability to loot and level up all of your models and everything that you're kind of used to from a lot of your classic skirmish games, such as Mordheim and Necromunda. It's kind of funny that we mentioned Necromunda. So even your lowliest warrior of whatever type will level up and become better. So both games are going to feature very much that story-driven scenario element with heavy emphasis on campaign play and model improvement, as well as having structured tournament formatting for the year. So, there's some people that just don't have time to dedicate to playing a campaign. I totally get that. There's some people that really like the heavy competitive style play. I totally get that too. So I'm trying to meet in the middle for everything. So if you want to play campaign, cool. Just know that your campaign lists are not going to be tournament legal because of the fact that it's really hard to balance that when everybody's off doing their own damn thing. Tournament lists, again, you'll have like a set amount of points, just like you would any other game. You're able to buy, certain models and artifacts and things like that to put into your list. Once that's built, that is your list for the entire extent of the tournament. Just like most tournaments, hit each other in the face with swords and axes until one's left standing, and then that is basically how you determine winner. So, yeah, nothing new there. But I do plan on doing quite a bit with both of the games. If you are at all interested in joining in and helping with the playtest, you can always email me, tim@skirmishsupremacy.com. I will let you into the Morpheus Engine playtest group on Facebook, and we will work on getting these games hammered out. That is probably the best place right now that I can actually dump details for you, is on the Morpheus Engine playtest page. Past that, like I said, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get too far ahead of it because I don't want to spoil any surprises. It's really hard for me to contain myself in this way because I'm one of those guys, when I'm excited about something, I really want to spill all the beans.
It really is
but I'm not
you.
going to. Really... Yes, it is. You have no idea how much this really hurts right now to sit back and kind of make it sound like it's not a big deal. But
there was a reason why I was trying to be super vague, and he was just like, I can't let it. No, you're being too vague.
Yeah. So, again, 2 games with 2 expansions each. So for those of you that saw the post with the Osprey stuff, that's exactly what it is. I got 2 games coming out with the Osprey with 2 expansions for each one. So, now keep in mind, we're not going to be seeing the first one until Q1 of 2019. It will most likely be an Adepticon release. So I've got plenty of time to work on them. Obviously, I've still got deadlines, and I've got to get artists and get art okayed and okay layout and all that fun stuff that goes along with making a legitimate professional game that's not written on the back of a dinner napkin. So, yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. But if you would like to help out with those games and learn more and see the process along the way, again, check out the Morpheus Engine playtest page or email me, tim@skirmishsupremacy.com, and I'll get you all set up to help out. Really, That's all I can say. I wish I could say more, but I can't.
That's plenty right now.
Yeah.
But we did. So I will add that Phil and I now have a rivalry going through. We did prototype and test out one of the game concept ideas, and Phil and I had a smashingly good, almost literally time playing it. But Phil lost kind of badly in the end. So now he and I are having fun talking smack back and forth every now and again.
But in his defense, he beat the shit out of that fire giant, and now he can hire fire giants.
This is true. We'll have to look forward to that being in his warband next time around.
So, yes, that is little spoiler alert about some of the stuff you could get in the game, but yes.
Right. Good job. All right. So, talking about games and things coming up, Dust has their Endless War campaign going on. And though I haven't actually participated in it directly yet, I haven't actually signed up. I know my games have all gotten logged there because of the people who I've been playing against are avid Endless War people. But they put out this set of they call them innocent bystanders, and it's a goat and like 2 cows that they have. And so I was picking some stuff up, and I picked that set up, and I went, you know what? What if we use these as cover? Not just put them out on the board just for, board's sake, but what if they actually had a purpose? I'm like, you could treat them like ammo crates. And in the game, ammo crates will provide your guys with cover, your infantry. If a walker walks into where an ammo crate is, though, it'll crush it and ammo crate's gone. I'm like, but what if I twist that up a little bit? Because these are living, breathing animals. I take cover in it, but if my unit gets shot at, for every shot that hits the unit, if they roll their cover save and they make it, you have to take an animal away. So this was a few days before the dust day at Gigabytes, and so I sent it over to a couple of people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." And then I sent it over to Greg, and Greg's like, "Ha, that sounds like fun. Just wait though, I've got something to show you." So when he came out, he handed me this sheet, and he's like, "Now remember what we talked about the other day, and read this." It was the newest Endless War for November, so it hadn't even been put out yet. And you weren't using the animals as cover, but you were trying to run out to collect them, to take them to feed your group because you were out of supplies. And so, both sides were competing to grab the animals. And there was another one that was like pumpkins and, blowing up pumpkins and stuff like that. So I was rolling because it was almost dead on the same idea of making use of these animals. But anyone who plays Dust, if you want, you can definitely go ahead and use the animals as cover,
as they're meant to be.
Now, my son, when we got to Dust Day and I was talking about that, I started explaining that we would put them out on the board and, they could provide cover. He's like, "They don't die, do they?" And I started laughing and went, "Maybe." He's like, "You're so cruel. Come on, let's do it."
It sounds like something he would say.
Basically.
Well, yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything for this week. Again, we suck at getting guests this week, but we're going to be better about it. So,
you know what though? Well, so there is a couple other things. I've been doing a little bit of live stuff here and there. I'm planning on just doing it more. It'll probably be a little bit more strictly onto Facebook Live, just literally hitting the button go and just going, "Hey, what's going on, folks?" A little bit more ad hoc and when I have time. So for those of you who aren't subscribed, go ahead, subscribe to our page and set it to, send you updates for when we go live. Because, like I did a review on some Gravelcast terrain when I got it in. Every now and again when I'm painting, just kick it on. I've got it where I can go live on my phone and I just tip the camera, or, I can actually get the camera to turn on its side and work properly for me and all that. So, there'll be that stuff going on. I will probably also do it throughout the day for the Dust Day. Just kick it on every now and again to catch little snippets. I might also have my main camera going to capture the day overall. There was one other thing I was thinking of. Oh, I was just going to say, I think we actually, we've kind of gotten better at doing these, oh shit, we didn't have anyone, or we had them cancel on us. I remember the first few and they were kind of awkward.
Yeah, they were.
These last few have really, really kind of flown nice and smooth. And if anyone disagrees, shut up.
Yeah, we don't give a shit what your opinion is at that point.
Your opinion doesn't matter. Or it does, is if you actually voice it. And tell us if you want us to babble about something in particular. You show up and you say, "Hey, why don't you guys talk about X, Y, or Z?" Depending on what X, Y, or Z is. We do have certain limits. We haven't found them, but I know they exist somewhere.
They're somewhere in the ether.
Yeah, somewhere out there. We may go, nope, that's actually that. You have, you know what? We will send you a prize. You have found something that actually makes us both go, I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll call it the SSP Shrivel Award. So
now we're really going to get some fucked up shit.
Oh, yeah, probably. But you know what? We're just going to go with it.
Yep, just roll with it. All right, so...
Well, since we like to end on high notes...
SSP Shrivel Award. You really, really don't want to achieve it.
I just wonder how many people are going to try now. But anyway, folks, that is going to wrap up this episode of Skirmish Supremacy. We will see you next time.
Bye!
Thanks for listening to another episode of Skirmish Supremacy. To see more of the antics that Nick and I do, you can check us out on Facebook at Skirmish Supremacy. We also have Twitter, which we can be reached at Skirmish Supreme, because apparently Skirmish Supremacy does not fit in Twitter. And if you want to email us directly, you can reach us at tim@skirmishsupremacy.com or nick@skirmishsupremacy.com. Thanks for listening.